After receiving a massive indemnity, gaining new territories, and eliminating Qing influence on the Korean peninsula, the very goal it had sought above all, Japan briefly savored the taste of victory as a triumphant power. But that triumph was soon soured by the intervention of Russia. In April 1895, Russia, joined by France and Germany, urged Japan to return the Liaodong Peninsula, claiming that Japanese control there would threaten the peace of the region. This event became known as the Triple Intervention. Russia had long opposed Japan's stationing of troops in Korea, and had repeatedly demanded their withdrawal. Japan, however, replied evasively that it had no intention of invading the peninsula, and would withdraw once the situation stabilized. Still, Japan found the demand unacceptable. Yet, realizing that a war against three great powers would be unwinnable, it reluctantly agreed to return the Liaodong Peninsula. This decision shocked the Korean court. They were astonished that Russia, without firing a single shot, could force victorious Japan to surrender territory it had taken from the mighty Qing Empire. To escape Japan's growing interference in domestic affairs, Queen Min began to draw closer to Russia, using its strength as a shield to regain political power. After the Triple Intervention, the Korean court even invited Yevgeny Alexeyev, commander of Russian land and sea forces in the Far East, to the royal palace, a symbol of Korea's new alignment. Japan was well aware of this and deeply troubled. Envoy Kaoru Ino tried in vain to persuade the Korean government to side with Japan, but Queen Min's political skill and authority prevailed. At the time, Japan even regarded her as the true ruler of Korea, but Japan would not stand by and watch in silence. Since the 1876 Ganghwa Treaty with Korea, Tokyo had spent 20 years trying to bring the peninsula under its control. Korea could not be allowed to slip into the hands of Russia or any other power. For Japan, leaving the Queen, who had become an obstacle to its designs, was not an option. So they hatched a conspiracy. They called it a fox hunt. October 1895. Their plan was simple and brutal. The Korean public harbored deep hatred for Queen Min and her family, the Min clan. Even the Daewongun, her father-in-law, despised them, and had once sought to have them killed. Japan decided to exploit this bitter division. A large operation would be staged, involving Japanese troops and civilian ronin. This was deliberate. If the plan failed, Tokyo could deny responsibility and claim it was not a state act. The assassination, code-named Fox Hunt, was to be carried out before dawn, under the cover of darkness. Ronin such as Okamoto Ryunosuke went to the Daewongun's quarters, forcing him to rise and take part so it would appear as his rebellion. But the Daewongun delayed, and, by the time they reached the palace, dawn was breaking. Still, the plan went ahead. October 8, 1895 at 5 in the morning, the darkest tragedy in Korea's history began. The Operation Fox Hunt was carried out by Japanese legation guards, Korean collaborators, and ronin. Together, they stormed Gyeongbokgung Palace. At the main gate, the 300-man guard, led by American officer William Dye, was crushed. Those who survived fled. Guided by Korean informants, the intruders advanced into the inner palace. They reached the royal quarters where King Gojong was staying. Swords in hand, they dragged and insulted the king, firing shots beside him, striking the court ladies. Even when Gojong shouted in fury, they forced him down by the shoulder, a scene of absolute desecration. In another chamber, the Crown Prince Sunjong was seized, his hair pulled, his neck struck with a blade. The palace descended into chaos. Realizing the queen was not there, they rushed to Gyeongkyonggang on the northern side of the palace. Commander Hong Gi-hun and his men tried to stop them, but were shot dead by Japanese soldiers. The intruders pressed further inward, to Gonungek Hall. The Daewongun's men waited outside, taking no direct part. the Ronin stormed through the halls, grabbing women by the hair, shouting, "Where is the queen?" They checked each face one by one, and at last they found her, Queen Min, hiding among her attendants, desperate to flee. In Japan's own official report, the Ito Hokaku, the report of condolence, the events were described with chilling precision. A group penetrated deep into the inner quarters, dragged out the queen and inflicted knife wounds upon her. They stripped off her garments and performed a genital inspection. Finally, they poured oil upon her body and burned her remains. In other words, before killing her, they violated her. According to the scholar Huang Hyun, the queen did not cry out defiantly as legend says. She begged for her life, but the Ronin showed no mercy. Her body was covered with a quilt, placed upon firewood, doused in kerosene, and burned to ashes. Thus perished the mother of Korea, Queen Min, Empress Myeongseong. At just 43 years of age, the incident became known as the Yulmi Incident, or the Assassination of Queen Min. It was carried out by both Japanese and Korean collaborators, and the scene of her death was beyond horror. That same day, Japan's consul Uchida Sadatsuchi, uninformed of the plan, sent the first report to Tokyo, naming Lieutenant Miyamoto Taketaro of the Legation Guard as the killer of the queen. Yet, identifying who struck the fatal blow proved impossible. Among soldiers and Ronin, many later boasted, "I was the first to cut her, I delivered the final strike, I confirmed the corpse, I burned the body." Each claimed his share in the killing as though it were a badge of honor, but the act was collective. Asking who killed Queen Min has no meaning. While the main force was Japanese, Korean soldiers of the Royal Training Corps also took part, and it is said that, even as they murdered their queen, many Ronin felt a sense of pride believing they served their country. They insisted it was not an official order, that Minister Muragoro had acted alone, and that the Diwongun had cooperated voluntarily. In the end, Japan declared every Japanese involved not guilty. Minister Mura himself was later decorated. Many historians now agree this was no rogue plot, but a state-sponsored act of terror. Professor Atsushi Kokitsu of Meiji University calls it nothing less than state terrorism. Crown Prince Sunjong, who witnessed the killing, testified that Wu Bom-son, an anti-queen official, had taken part in the murder. Wu himself later confessed, but in 1903, 8 years later, Wu Bom-son was assassinated in Kure, Hiroshima Prefecture, by two men Go Young-gun and No Yun-myung, said to have been sent by Sunjong himself. In 1907, the Hiroshima Court of Appeal sentenced Go to life imprisonment, No to 12 years. That same year, the Residency General issued pardons to 6 others, and Emperor Sunjong petitioned that Go too be pardoned, declaring, "If Go, who avenged the queen, is pardoned, the Yulmi incident will at last be resolved, and the mistrust between our nations will melt away." But later historians argue that the testimonies of Gojong and Sunjong, claiming the assassin was a Korean, were fabrications the product of Japanese manipulation. From Korea's view, the truth was clear. The assassination had been driven by Japan's imperial ambition, and the Diwongun had nothing to do with it. Queen Min was not universally loved. Some saw her as a flawed ruler, a queen whose politics hastened Korea's decline. But, even so, in all of history, there is no parallel to what happened that day. Never before had the queen of another nation been slain in such a brutal, inhuman way. To kill a foreign monarch's consort, not for justice or vengeance, but simply to satisfy ambition, is something we still struggle to comprehend. The sword used in her assassination, a Hisen blade, is said to be kept at Kushida Shrine in Hakata, along with a record claiming it was the weapon that struck her. To this day, it remains a source of deep resentment in Korea. From that moment, the fate of the Joseon dynasty was sealed. Its long legacy moved steadily toward its end, and Japan, having eliminated the obstacle of Queen Min, reclaimed its dominance on the Korean peninsula, but this renewed ambition soon brought it into conflict with a powerful rival, Russia. Thus began the road to the Russo-Japanese War.